Hello guys. So today we're gonna do cross-country flight planning of the Gleim part 1 because this chapter is an absolute beast and I realized if I do both that video is gonna be like an hour long, and also the second part is kind of confusing me, so I gotta go review with my professor and I don't want to teach that if I don't know what's going on. But anyways, let's start. All right. So ICAO flight plan. So it's a form used for domestics and international operations under IFR and VFR conditions, which like the VFR doesn't really matter for you guys because it's private pilot. Um, or IFR, sorry. What am I saying? Okay, so the flight plans are mandatory if flying in national airspace, except for if you're a military operation. ICAO flight plans can be completed online, so this is the link to complete it, and then if you click this link, and then log in, plan, flight brief, you'll find this. There is like a paper one that you can fill out, but I think everybody's gonna fill this out. If you want to conduct a flight partially VFR and then change it to IFR, a separate flight plan should be filled out for each portion. All right, so for full guidance, you have to go to the AIM and then paragraph 515, appendix 4. But there were some certain things that the Gleim pointed out that they want to make sure you know. So here in the level area, it says level, use only your initial requested altitude on your VFR flight plan. So just like, don't put in a bunch of like altitudes, it's just the one that you want to initially start flying at. Destination, include the ICAO for the place you plan to make your last landing of the flight. If you have a stopover for longer than an hour, file two separate flight plans. If less than an hour, mention it to put it in the remaining section. The like remarks, I think. And then endurance right here is the amount of usable fuel in an airplane at the time of the departure expressed in hours of flying time. So like, I have 3 hours of fuel left. All right, close your flight plan online or at the nearest FSS. So contacting this number, or you close the flight plan function on your like app. If the FFS, if the SSS, what? Okay, whatever. Contact it is not available. Contact ATC and have them relay it to the flight service station. Control towers or ground control will not close your VFR or DVFR automatically. So but IFR plans will be closed automatically unless it's at a uncontrolled airport. So you gotta make sure you close it because if you don't close it, they're gonna send like emergency services to come find your plane because they think you crashed. All right, question 1. How should a VFR flight plan be closed at the completion of a flight at a controlled airport? The tower will automatically close the flight plan when the aircraft turns off the runway. The pilot must close the flight plan with the nearest FSS or FAA facility upon landing. The tower will relay the instructions to the nearest FSS when the aircraft contacts the tower for landing. And the answer is B. A pilot must close the flight plan with the nearest flight service station or other FAA facility upon landing. So, yeah, they won't do it for you, okay? Pre-flight inspection. So the PIC or pilot in command is responsible for determining that airplane is airworthy and safe. The owner or operator of the aircraft is responsible for maintaining the airplane in airworthy condition. And then first flight of the day, the pre-flight should be accomplished through a systematic means that the manufacturer recommends. Like systematic, like go through this list of things that the manufacturer recommends. Um, how should an aircraft pre-flight inspection be accomplished for the first flight of the day? Quick walk around, check gas and oil, thorough and systematic means recommended by the manufacturer, any sequence as determined by the pilot in command. And it is B, through a systematic means recommended by the manufacturer. All right, and then we just kind of go into miscellaneous airspeed questions. Since it was cross country, like this is kind of all over the place, I'm not gonna lie. At least the first part is. So, when turbulence is encountered, the airplane's airspeed will be reduced to design maneuvering speed, VA, which is the speed at which you can make full control movements without damaging the structure of the aircraft because the plane will stall before it breaks. Yeah. If the pilot should attempt to maintain level flight attitude. Aircraft's nose and wings remain relative to the horizon. And don't mix up attitude and altitude. They're two different things. They look so similar that I was messing it up and I was like, what is going on here? But the attitude is nose and wings remain relative to the horizon. Um, Constant altitude and airspeeds are usually impossible and result in additional control pressure would add stress to the airplane. In event of a full in event of a power failure while airborne, immediately establish and maintain the best glide airspeed, VG, which is the speed at which the aircraft has the greatest distance forward and then the least amount of altitude lost. Maximum gliding distance is obtained when the total drag is minimized. Best glide speed is calculated by determining when the aircraft has the least amount of drag. This occurs at the point where all sources of drag add up to a minimum. Any airspeed above parasitic drag or below, which would be induced drag, will result in an increased drag. Yeah, so if you're above airspeed, you'll start getting parasitic drag, and then if you're below, you'll start getting induced drag. Consistent gliding speed should be maintained because variations will nullify your ability to determine the distance and choose a landing spot. So yeah, if you're going at different speeds, you can't really calculate when you're gonna get there because it keeps changing. Um, the minimum sync speed, VMS, which you can remember that, just minimum sync, provides the slowest available safe descent rate, allows for more time in the air. A little slower than the maximum glide range speed. So it's different because you're not like going as far, but you are spending more time in the air. Airspeed and altitudes for approaches and landings at night should be the same as in daylight. If you experience engine failure in a single-engine aircraft after you take off, you should establish the proper glide altitude, turn to the wind, adjust the pitch to maintain VY. And then it's establish proper glide altitude. All right, taxiing technique, and I got this pretty rad thing to look at here, but it's kind of blurry. So, um, if the wind is blowing, if it's headwind, so it's blowing at like the nose of the aircraft, if it is on the left side, use up aileron on the left hand wing and do a neutral elevator. And then for the right hand, just use a aileron on the right hand wing. Use up aileron on the right hand wing and neutral elevator. So the elevators stay the same for the headwind. And then they'll also be the same for the downwind, except for the elevator's in a down position. So use a down aileron on the left-hand wing and a down elevator, and use a down aileron on the right-hand wing and a down elevator. So if you're in a tailwheel airplane, which just means the wheel is on like the tail back here, and there's a strong quartering headwind, the elevator should be in an up position. So if this was a tail wheel, these two quarters should be the elevator should be in an up position. When taxiing high wing nose wheel equipped airplanes, the most critical wind is a quartering tailwind. So that would be back here. How should flight controls be held while taxiing a tail wheel airplane into a right quartering headwind? The answer is right aileron up, elevator down. So yeah. Um, so now we're getting into the nitty-gritty. You gotta listen up here, man. The magnetic course takes into account the difference between true north and magnetic north. So basically there's a true north and there's a magnetic north and they're different. Um, I don't really know why, but yeah. The magnetic course can be determined with this formula. So it's the magnetic course plus true course plus the variation. Okay, so you are going to need a plotter for this. So you're going to take out a sectional chart and first find the route you want to calculate. So we're going from this airport to this airport and you would like draw a line. And then there's gonna be, so put the straight edge of the plotter on your route, then then line the grommet up with the vertical line on the vertical line of altitude, or line the grommet up on what whatever. Okay, what I'm trying to say is, so there's gonna be a little hole in the middle of your plotter, and you want to put it so here's the line, and then there's gonna be these vertical lines going up like this, so they like look like this, and they have like little dash marks, and those are called the line of latitude. So if your line crosses the line of latitude like how it does here, that's where you want to put the little circle, the grommet. And this will help you calculate the angle. So where the line passes through the semicircle is the degree of the true course. Calculate the true course. So as you see, it's passing between about 45 degrees right here. Um, or like if you were to look at it, it would be right here is your true course. It takes a bit to get used to, so you definitely should practice, okay? Um, You can find the variation by finding a long dashed line on your sectional chart. The number on the line will tell you the amount of variation you should use to calculate the magnetic course. If there's an E next to the number, aka east, subtract the variation from the true course, and if there's a W, west, add the variation to the true course. So it looks like this dotted line, and if you can look right here, there's a 1E. So we are subtracting 1. So 45 is the true minus 1 degree east equals 44, and that's how we get the magnetic course. Um, if your course is to or from a VOR, which is a ground-based radio beacon that sends signals to your aircraft, VOR, and can detect what direction you're coming from the station, use a compass rose to determine the magnetic course. No adjustment is needed from true to magnetic. Use reciprocal radials when flying toward a VFR. So what this means is if you're flying towards a VFR at an airport at 180, your heading is the exact opposite, and your plotter would have like two numbers on it, so just the number below it. So your heading would be 360 and not 180, if that makes sense. Because it would be like, you see the two numbers? We got, here would be 360, 180, but those are the letters, so whatever. Anyways, um, the Gleim has a lot of good questions of testing you on how to actually do this, but I couldn't put it in here because it's like a slide. It'd be really hard to measure. But anyways, the angular difference between true north and magnetic north is magnetic variation. Magnetic deviation is something that would happen to a compass, so don't get those confused. All right. When calculating your magnetic heading, you need to have, so magnetic heading is different from your magnetic course. So what you should already have is your wind direction, your wind and knots, your true airspeed. Like if you were getting a question from like on the Gleim or on a test, you should have these three things, and you can know it's a magnetic heading question. And then you'll need to find the magnetic variation, which is what we just did in 11.5. And then the magnetic course. Oh wait, this is mixed up. The magnetic course is what we did, and then the magnetic variation is the long dash line on the sectional. Okay, so the formula for a magnetic heading is the magnetic heading equals magnetic course plus right and minus left wind correction angle. And you'll start to understand what this means. Okay, so we're just gonna go through by just like walking through an example question. The Gleim doesn't really explain it that well, and I think the best way is just if we did an example question. So determine, not supposed to say magnetic, bro. Okay, determine the magnetic heading for a flight from Sandport Airport to St. Mary's Airport. The wind is from 215 degrees at 25 knots, and the true airspeed is 125 knots. Um, So the wind direction is 215. The wind in knots is 225 knots. We have it see there. True airspeed is 125 knots. And then the magnetic variation. So I would also have a sectional chart with me, and I'd look at the sectional chart, and this is how I'd find it. Like back how we did in 1.5 11.5. So on there it says it's 15 east variation, and then the magnetic course is 166. So first, you got to convert your wind direction, which was the 215, to magnetic wind direction. So wind direction is like not accounted for the magnetic, so you have to use the magnetic variation. So since it's 15 east, you do 215 minus 15 equals 200. So your magnetic wind direction is 200. Um, all right. Now you're gonna have an E6B and then turn it to the backside. So use the backside of your E6B and set the grommet to 100. So put it right here. And then rotate your magnetic wind direction to, which is 200 in this case, and is positioned under the true index. So you see this part can rotate and 200 is directly under the true index. Um, Take your wind in knots, 25 knots, and place the point amount of the knots above your grommet. So as you see, we're at 100 here, but if we go 25 up, so this is 10, 20, 25, you would put a mark here on your grommet. And then, so with the point still placed, you would rotate your E6B until it's the magnetic course, which in this case is 166, is now under your true index. Your point should now be in a new place. So basically, what happened is we rotated this, and the point here got rotated all the way around until it was right here. And as you can see, we have 166 under the true index. So move the E6B up or down until it's the point over the true airspeed. So you want this point to be over the true airspeed. As you can see, we just moved it up like a little bit. So the true airspeed is like on these lines, and if it's 125, as you can see up here is the 125 line, and then we moved our grommet or our point so it could be there because it was a little bit below it, so it's just been moved up a little bit. Okay, so now this is how you find your wind correction. So count how far the point is from the center line. This is your wind correction. So if we go 1 or 2, wait, okay, so this is 5 degrees, and it's about 6, okay? Um, if your wind correction angle is right, then it's a positive. If it's left, then it's negative. So if it went this way, it would be -6. So add your magnetic course and your wind correction to find your magnetic heading. So 166 plus 6 equals 172. So your magnetic heading is 172. So yeah, that's how you find your magnetic heading. It's a lot, but if you just continuously follow these steps, you'll be able to wrap your head around it, I feel like. All right, when converting from true course to magnetic heading, a pilot should subtract easterly variation and right wing correction angle, add westerly variation and subtract left wing correction angle, or subtract westerly variation and add right wing correction angle. So you would add a westerly variation, and that's like the dashed line, remember? And then subtract left wing correction angle, which is this thing, if it's to the left. All right, now we are doing compass heading. So use a compass heading correction card to find your compass heading. So which would look like this. Um, Use compass heading is needed because instruments of each plane have instruments that cause the compass to deviate. So basically, your compass doesn't give you the actual true readings because there's like stuff in your plane that are kind of messing it up, like magnets and stuff. But yeah. You can also find the compass heading using this formula. So it's compass heading equals magnetic heading plus or minus the deviation, not variation. Okay, so to read this, the 4 is your magnetic heading, and you can see that here. And the steer is what your compass heading would be. So find your magnetic heading, and the number below that number will be your compass heading. So if my compass was 30 degrees, or if my magnetic heading was 30 degrees, then my compass heading would be 27 degrees because that's what's right under it. Magnetic headings are in intervals of 30 degrees. If you don't see your magnetic heading, then pick the closest one and subtract the magnetic heading amount with the four with what the four is subtracted from the steer. Which okay, it was kind of hard to explain, but basically, so if I had a magnetic heading of 55 and there isn't a 55 here, but there is a 60 and a 56, so we want to find the difference between the two. So 60 minus 56 equals 4 degrees. So that is like what you would subtract from your magnetic heading. So it'd be 54 minus 55 would equal 51, and that is your compass heading. All right, if your magnetic heading was 121 degrees, determines the compass heading. I'll let you go back and look. 121 degrees. Look here. All right, and your answer is 117. Um, yeah, this would be if you didn't like if you just picked the closest one to it, which would be 120 degrees, and this would be if you accidentally added instead of I think. I don't know. Anyways, part 2 is coming soon. I need to review that. Um, but yeah. So this was a little bit of a shorter one, but if I get anything wrong, just leave a hate comment. Blame ChatGPT. I am just a student, and yeah. Thanks for watching.